that's the whole text of John. The whole text of John is about how light just enters into our life. And if we were still worshiping with the old Latin Mass before the Reformation, the first word of worship would have been gaudete, gaudete, which means rejoice, have joy. It means to rejoice, have joy, right? And the word is sprinkled through, I don't know if you were listening closely today, but it's sprinkled throughout all of the readings that we have. It's sprinkled through Isaiah, it's sprinkled through Paul's letters, it's certainly through the Magnificat that we read from, that Dave read from Luke, Mary's song. Joy is this phrase that keeps coming through, right? I mean, Mary said, Isaiah says, glad tidings to the poor, I rejoice heartily in the Lord, right? And my God is the joy of my soul. And then, of course, Mary's song says, my soul rejoices in my God. My soul rejoices in my God. Right? My spirit finds joy in God, my Savior. My spirit finds joy. I mean, how many of us are consumed with joy every day? Just consumed with joy. My heart's just exulting with joy today. Oh, no. Every little once in a while. Bring a little water, Sylvia. Right? Every little once in a while, the soul rejoices. The soul rejoices. And yet, even in Paul's letter, the second reading, right? Or, to the Thessalonians, it says, how did he begin the phrase? Do you remember?
In the beginning?
The very first two words, rejoice always. Rejoice always. Rejoice always. And so, delve into an experience of joy. Think of an experience of joy in your lives. A moment of joy. How would you describe it? What was it like? What was it? Maybe you can't say that.
Birth of children. Yeah.
Birth of children was a moment of joy. It's a miraculous experience. What other experiences of joy where you're like, oh, my heart is just exulting.
Cocktail time.
Cocktail time. 5 o'clock. Or how do you want to say this? 5 o'clock somewhere in the world? Right? What other moments of joy?
Getting a job.
I'm sorry, baby?
Getting a job.
Oh, when you said yes, we would like to hire you.
That you like.
Yes.
Around this time of the year, we're more active. We feel that joy. We put our tree up with the star with it reminds us of what it's all about.
So when we go through rituals to remind us of joy, like this time of year when we put our trees up, we put lights on the tree, we put the star on, we go through these rituals, and it's just the whole act of working through that sometimes brings a joy into our lives. Yeah, there's that place of joy. And the Hebrew language is a fascinating one. It has only I don't know, don't hold me to this, but about 500 words, right? And then there are all these little roots that play off of the words, off of these words. But the majority of these words have to do with, not the majority, but I mean, basically the 13 roots out of those words, and 27 different words to express joy, to express rejoicing. There was this whole Hebrew notion that all of Thanksgiving was simply to give joy to God, for the joy that we've received in our lives. If we can really take time to reflect on joy. But how many of us really just kind of reflect on, I have joy today.
I have to say, I don't look at it.
Yeah, I don't always look at it. I read the news today, oh boy.
It's more or less I made it through another day.
Yeah, sometimes it's just that. It's just like we're just trudging through, we're just kind of going on, but yet, where does this experience of joy come from? What is it that we want to give thanksgiving for in our life? What is it that makes us want to rejoice? When something goes right. So all of our day long, we're complaining but hoping something will go right. Right? I just saw a picture, right? It says, what's wrong with this picture? It's a guy cutting down a tree. He's got the ladder on the tree, and he's got the saw down below. Right? I mean, yeah, there's something really wrong with that picture. And sometimes when we're just drudging through life, and then we wonder, why isn't there any joy?
We take the good for granted and we just always concentrate on the bad.
We take the good for granted and concentrate on the bad.
I was just saying, I don't think we take enough time to even identify what we have to be thankful and joyous about.
Yeah, well, what would it be like if we would just take time in the day and say, okay, today, rather than focusing on the negative, I'm just going to say, what created joy in my life today? What is it that I could give thanksgiving for today? I mean, sometimes, you work in a barn, you're with hay, you're with the dust, you wake up in the morning. I woke up this morning, right? And you realize, man, just breathing is a really nice gift.
I've realized that personally.
And I bet, right? I bet Charlie said that too. And I'm not complaining, I'm just saying that, you take things for granted. You take things just like the breath of fresh air. Just like waking up in the morning and switching on, can light come into my life?
Heat this time of year.
Can I have heat this time of year? And I know there's people suffering without it. Right? Yeah. And so there's this thing, but, the Israelites regarded the greatest act of thanksgiving as being, give joy to God. Give joy for all the gifts of life today. That was the greatest gift. That was the greatest form of praise. All praise. So contrasted to the other Eastern religions. This Jewish faith, this Hebrew faith, was about expressing joy and really focusing on the gifts of life every day. Every day. And so John the Baptist is talking about this. We have a gift. It's light breaking into our lives. It is the light of the world. It's the light that shines in our darkness. But the truth be told, joy and light do get tarnished, don't they? They get tarnished by whatever weighs us down. It gets tarnished by whatever darkness is in our lives. Right? And so what is it? What is it that really tarnishes your joy on a daily basis?
I think it's seeing the pain, the greed of others. I mean, it's just in front of me all the time. It's hard to step back and say, I'm joyful for this when I see everything that seems to be pulling me down.
Yeah. We see so much pulling us down, so much greed, so much self-absorption. We see all these things happening around us. And it starts to feel like a weight. And can I make a difference in this world? Can I really make a difference? And what is my joy? Is it just fleeting? Is it just fleeting, or is there something substantial here? There's something substantial here. And and the prophets remind us, but Isaiah, today's text, reminds us, especially in this Advent season, that we once in a while just have to encourage one another. Encourage our own hearts to experience joy, right? I mean, think about it. We have losses of love in relationships. We have loss of loved ones, right? We have illnesses that debilitate us, or we have work that overwhelms us, or we have, the greed in the world, or we have the news that bombards us with negativity. And then it's in that context that Isaiah basically says, beware. Beware, because despair longs to defeat you. Despair longs to defeat you. And that's where Isaiah talks about the great instead. The great instead. If you listen closely to what Dave was reading to us, right? He speaks of the great instead. Give them garland instead of ashes. Give them the oil of gladness instead of mourning. Give them the mantle of praise instead of faint spirits. It's the great instead. It's the great instead. Instead of this, let us move here. And that might be the way in which we look, right? I mean, and you think about this. Israel's emerging, in Isaiah's text, Israel's emerging after 50 years of captivity. There are 50 years of captivity. Their capital's been burned to the ground. That's the ashes. Right? That's the ashes. Right? Give them garland instead of the memory of their burnt city. I mean, that's the historical context. Give them garland as they return out of captivity. They can remember some sense of joy in their lives, that they are freed from some bondage. Right? Give them garland instead of ashes. Right? You know, a half century of bondage. None of us know that. None of us know that. That kind of bondage. And yet this is what they're emerging to. And he's simply saying, let them go with a new heart. Let them go with a new heart. And isn't that what Isaiah is saying to each of us? Think of the places that you've been held in captivity. Think of the ways in which despair holds you. Think of the way that sadness holds you. Think of the way that complaining holds you. Think of the way that these things hold you. And then look at the great instead. Instead of this attitude, I will change my heart. God will change my heart. Right? Yeah, the great instead. That's what John the Baptist says in the gospel too, right? I come to you and I bring you these gifts, but instead of me, one greater will follow. One greater will follow. He will bring light into your darkness. He will bring light into your darkness. And some people say that drinking of joy is like drinking of a glass of pure water. My other image of a farm, other than the dust and the hay, when I was shipped out as a small kid, you know, child labor, I think they call it these days. When I was shipped out to my aunt and uncle's farms to go bale hay or to go clean the manure troughs or whatever, they didn't have running water in the house. They didn't have running in the water house in their house until maybe 69, 70. So I'd go to my aunt and uncle's. But there was something so amazing. They had these porcelain, I don't know, is that what they call it, porcelain? It's not porcelain, but it's like these cups. And it's almost like this porcelain around. And you sit there and you crank, 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 crank. And then the water come out and you'd fill that cup up. It wasn't anything purer in the world after you'd worked all day in the hayfield. And you were just itchy and you were just sweaty, and then you went to that well. It wasn't anything more beautiful than a glass of pure water. Well, that's what joy is, isn't it? Isn't joy like a glass of pure water? Isn't that what God is really wanting to give to us, right? I mean, it's like, and it's funny because joy can sit with the people who are dying, can remember the beauty of their lives. Joy can sit at a new birth, right? When we've watched our children be born. That's the beauty of joy. It can climb mountains and it can sit in valleys. Don't you see? That's the nature of God. It can climb mountains and sit in valleys. It can be spontaneous and it can be present. Right? That's the nature of joy. That's the nature of God. It doesn't have to rush. It takes time to contemplate the heart's desire. Right? And isn't this what we wait for in Jesus know our joys, that Jesus will know our obstacles, that Jesus will sit with us in both of those circumstances, and that we will be comforted? Right? Isn't it Jesus' desire and longing to walk and accompany us in our peaks and valleys, in our despairs? And just that accompaniment, just that presence, just that love, no matter what circumstance we're walking through in life, does that not bring joy and a heart of thanksgiving?